you can start.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar from Women in Computing Affinity Group of IEEE CSBDS. I'm Professor Dr. Risalata Singh Khan, and it's my pleasure to be the moderator of today's webinar. Our keynote speakers has extensive experience and knowledge in the topics we will be discussing today, and we are thrilled to have them share their insights with us. The keynote speaker of today's webinar is Professor Dr. Mashura Shammi. She will give us a talk on an introduction to the research process from planning to writing a thesis, the onion philosophy of research, ethics in research, including data fabrication and plagiarism, and finally, the publishing process, how to work on an article to publish it. Our another speaker is Ms. Swarnali Bosak, who will put the light on the mentioned topic throughout the further discussion. So, before starting our keynote session, I would like to give you a brief introduction of our speakers. Dr. Mashura Shammi is serving as a professor in the Department of Environmental Science at Jahangirnagar University. She has been teaching environmental health and safety, environmental ethics, policies, laws and regulations, sustainable development and environmental assessments for the last 14 years. She has completed her BSc and MSc in environmental science from Jahangirnagar University, Bangladesh, and she has completed her PhD in ecology from the University of Chinese Academy of Science. She was a fellow of the Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA, and completed an international training program on strategic environment assessment. Besides, she was a fellow of the Organization of Women in Science and Development, RD Career Women Scientists in 2018, a fellow of Eco Peace Leadership Center, Asia in 2018-19, a fellow of Landec, the Netherlands government's land agency in 2022. Currently, she is the project coordinator of the local steering committee of the Jahangirnagar University Erasmus Joint Research Projects on strategic environmental assessments for capacity development in higher education in Asia and Southeast Asia, along with Gothenburg University and 8 other universities of Europe and Asia. She has 21 H-index publications. She is involved with the different social and environmental advisory works. Now, I would like to give a brief introduction about our guest speaker, Ms. Swarnali Bosak. Ms. Swarnali Bosak is currently serving as an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in Jahangirnagar University, where she is involved in research and innovation, scientific projects, and students' welfare. She obtained both her bachelor's and first master's degree in computer science and in engineering from Jahangirnagar University, Bangladesh, and the second master's degree from the University of Edinburgh, UK, under the Commonwealth Scholarship. With over 11 years of experience in academia, she has worked in various public and private universities in Bangladesh and abroad, serving as a researcher, trainee, project leaders, and supervisor for various innovative projects. Swarnali's research interests includes artificial intelligence, machine learning, brain science, and human-computer interaction. She has extensively published peer-reviewed papers in various reputed journals and conferences and articulated her works broadly in the ACMW workshop in Australia, Sheffield Halbrand University, UK, and Pierre Marie Curie University in France. She has coached undergraduate students teams, including girls teams, to participate in the National Collegiate Programming Contest in the South Asia region. Her academic accomplishments have brought a significant number of awards such as Procesco Scholarship, ACM Lenovo's Fellowship, and gold medal as the highest scorer in Jahangirnagar University. Swarnali has a strong passion for contributing to youth and women empowerment through sustainable technological exchange and advancement. Now, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Dr. Mashura Shammi, to start her session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for introducing me. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and good evening also. I would like to share my screen. Can I do it now? Okay, I think I can. Yes. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, again. Our topic is crafting research, a generalized approach from planning to publishing. So our table of contents, if we see here, there are several things. First of all, I show you an onion because our onion is an important part of our life. We always cut onion. So research is also like this. So Professor Saunders, he introduced this onion philosophy of research, how and research from outside to inside we go, from outside to inward, and how we process it from planning to publishing. So first we'll look at the introduction to the research process, then the onion philosophy of our research, which is our core point, and then the ethics in research. This is also the part of onion philosophy of research, and then the publishing process, which is the last part of our discussion topic. So if we start from here, like the references, we have used several references. For example, we have used David B. Resnick's Ethics in Research and Why It Is Important. We have used Over H. Simon et al. About the 5 simple rules to avoid plagiarism. We have used Santos et al. About his research topic on how to strategize for writing a research paper. We have used Saunders et al. Books, 2007, the famous book on research methods, particularly written for business students, but it can be utilized by all type of science students or also medical research students, or also from the IT students, for everyone else. So we have used also the Sinha's book on that, how Shrek and Saunders, the onion myth, how he used this metaphor in storytelling. And also we have used the Wallyman's 2019 research project, how to design and planning and getting started. So these are the references that I have used throughout my presentation. So if you need further information, you can check those references. So now I will start my introduction process on the research process. First of all, what is this one, right? So introduction, if we say that it's a research process is a systematic data collection. Oh, I just have to tell you one thing. If you need any question, you can ask me directly or through your moderator. So the research process is systematic data collection, and then the systematic data interpretation also, and there is also clear objective to find out things. And therefore, we can define is that research can be defined something that people undertake in order to find out things in a systematic way, thereby increasing their knowledge. So when we want to know something, we have to research, we have to do the systematic way, and so that we can get more knowledge. For example, here's a picture of a landfill. This is a satellite image of a landfill taken from the Google, probably Google Quick View or something. And this is one of my research picture, published paper. So I wanted to know that what is in this landfill leachate content. You see there is lots of tons of waste is there, and there is some water content. So I wanted to know what's in those water. So this is my, this was started with this question. Research always starts with this question, right? So question is this, what was in this water? So I wanted to know in this water, and what happens if this water is exposed to sunlight, because this is always exposing to sunlight. What are the character of those leachate water? What happens after the 5 days, 6 days, or 100 days of exposure? What may happen? What is there in the inside of this water? Is it helpful for me? Is it unhealthy for me? I know it is unhealthy, but how much unhealthy? So this was my hypothesis question, and then I also hypothesized that's what will happen. This is the last part. That is the end part of my result. But from starting from this figure, you can see the satellite image to go from to draw this figure. It took some time. It took a systematic process of data collection. Data collections, there were systematic interpretation, and there were some objectives also. So I had to go through a process for identifying all this from first figure to the last figure. So there is a gap. So to find out this gap, how I went through, I will share with you. So the second part is, sorry, I showed you the figure here. So as I told you that it took some time to identify some data collection. For example, I took some FTIR, fluorescence infrared figures to find out this. So this is a systematic way to find out things, all right? So 2 phases are important. One is systematic way, and then there is the to find out things. So then there is a systematic which suggests that research is based on a logical relationship and not just belief. I believe that there is some problem with this leachate water, but I didn't know what is there. So I had to find out those relationship, and I have to prove with some sets of data. So I have to find out there. So then to find out things suggests there are multiplicity of possible purposes for your research. It is therefore an activity, which means it has to be finished within a time limit. So there are some time limits also. So for example, I have collected here, I have shown here one data. Sorry, it took, there are some other data also. For example, I took some for example, fluorescence data also. So from the fluorescence data, for example, I have given some time frame. It's like from 0 hour, 1 hour, 3 hour, 6 hour, in for example, second day, fifth day, etc. It was during the design process that I have decided that I should go like this way. So then these data were collected, interpreted, and finally, as I shown you the previous figure, this figure was drawn here, the second figure, right? So this is the way I have gone throughout the process, the research process, but it's tiresome. It's not easy. You have to have some patience here. You have to go with a plan. So this is the introduction part we are going to. So now it's the research process. So as I told you before that there is a process here, we can break it down into systematic way with the several phases. For example, first is choosing and defining our problem. That is the important part, most important part, planning. Second part is assessing and analyzing the data. We collect the data and we go through some analysis with some test or hypothesis, we draw a conclusion. And last part is our communicating, that is our publishing our research, and that is the present paper as a poster presentation or write a paper. So now we will dissect the first phase, that is choosing and defining our research process. So that is first start with the planning. Okay, so planning the research, it has also some things to look at. It contributes to our development as a scientist. You must have to remember that, because planning, good planning is very much important to do a successful research. Your research plan is a map for your career as a research science professional. You must remember that, because when you do a good research plan, is very much important for your successful scientific professional and good scholarship, to obtain a good scholarship, to obtain a good position also. So one of the functions of a research plan is to demonstrate that your intellectual vision and aspirations. And it's also an opportunity to begin to demonstrate the creative and independent thinking required of a successful scientist. So this part actually taken from the Jim Austin, who is the editor of Science Career, Science Magazine, in his published article in 2002 in Science Magazine. So first we go here, for example, first we need to tell a good story. Okay, so it's research is like a story. Your research plan, it's like a story. It's a good story. So first we need to choose a good an important subject, which is much more influential at the moment, or which is much more focused at the moment, or which is much more important or significant. So we have to choose it. For example, climate change. We know that climate change is a huge problem for all of us. So we have to find out in climate change, in which sector I can work there, or where I can contribute, but I need to specify it. So the second part is we have to be specific. We have to be specific in choosing one of the topic which is relevant to the climate change, but also focused with a major theme. For example, I want to work with a climate change problem, but with a salinity problem. My hypothesis problem is that climate change is increasing salinity in our coastal areas of Bangladesh. So this is my specific problem. Okay, so our third part is we have to be serious in about writing. We have to be serious about writing, means that we have to write it down this problem. We have to narrow it down. So this is our problem. I have to find out some information. So, but because as a human mind, we forget everything, we need to write it down, note it down. So when you plan your research, you prepare a work file, start writing it down step by step. That what you are gaining the information, what information we are having, what research paper we are having, write it down. So then you start making the plan, solid, well considered, but realistic plan. But if you want to say that I want to solve these climate change issues, it's not well considered, it's not solid. Okay, you have to have a realistic plan that, okay, there is a salinity problem, but my problem is that I want to work with a drinking water. I have saline water. I want to desaline it, or I want to supply filtered water to people for the people to make it less saline. How can I do it? So there is a problem. So there is a realistic plan you have to provide. Okay, I have the salinity problem. I make a desalination plan or some other methods which I have to work on. But for that, you have to make some include some preliminary data. Where you will find it? You have to look for the data. We have to look for the different types of gray literatures from Google search, from other newspaper search, or maybe from other include redundant approaches. What are there? You have to note it down. Then you have to demonstrate your awareness of other works being done in the field. This means that you have to look for the literatures on the mentioned specific topic, that what are the literatures there in the world literatures in different types of journal articles, what are there, what are the other people's works, you note it down. Okay. So this is your planning research, and after that you go for the literature review. Now you have our literature review. Why it's important? So it is not easy to sit down and write a 5,000 word research proposal or a 15,000 word master's thesis or a 30,000 word research PhD dissertation in one sitting. It is not easy. You have to have that plan. You have to think for the literature review. It takes time. It requires understanding and reading the research articles, designing the process, and planning extensively, which we have already discussed about how to do the research plan. So here I show this diagram that the purpose of literature review is first to show the relationship between previous studies and your theories. Okay, so you have to read those literatures and find out your what is the relationship between your research plan and your previous studies and other people's studies. So then you have to identify main ideas. What are the main ideas of those research? What are the methods? What are the concluding remarks? What are the theories they have shown there? Now you have to write down that what is the context for your own research. You can find out the context. We can find out the objectives. You can define the topic. You can identify the major influential works, which work is much more appropriate for your work, your research, which is the most important thing, which method you can use in your work. So what are the already existing information in that research field? Who are the what are the gaps in identification, research problem, and hypothesis defining? Like, for example, from all this research, you find out that there is a specific gap that, okay, there are some desalination problem from climate change, which has not been addressed. So I can work on the desalination for drinking water supply. So this is my research gap. I identified it. I have to find out the problem, then I can define the hypothesis now. And also, there is another purpose, like when we read the research paper, read that who are the authors, who are the people which research team is working on this specific field. Is there a chance to collaborate with them? Is there a chance so I can get some idea from them also from discussion? So this is the purpose of literature review that we can find out. So our next phase is choosing and defining our problem, the literature, and the gap. So gap is a very important term here, and because why I would contribute in the research project that already been working by so many people. I don't want to do that. That where is the novelty here, right? So this is the first question. So to which literature my research was aiming to contribute? You have to find out this question. Is my research important? Is my research is going to contribute some problem solving, for example, a salinity problem solving? What is the gap and where the literature is concerned? Okay, you have to find out that gap from all this literature review. Is it a small gap but a significant one? Because sometimes we work in a local problem with a significant gap. Okay, but this is a small gap, but might be a very good contribution. It can solve these issues. Sometimes there is a large gap, but for that large gap, what research method should be used? And that large gap may be identified by several other methods, several other issues, several other projects. Okay, not just single projects, but maybe a alignment of projects from 5, 6, or 7 maybe. So you have to find out this particular literature and the gap, because it will define our problem. And then after choosing this gap, you can go for the research, okay, further process. So Now you have to find out the literature, because we already know about this, that we have find out now the gap, but we have to find out the enough literature. So literature review is one of the important thing, because we must ponder where to look for relevant knowledge. Okay, there's different way we can find out literature. For example, primary report is from reports, thesis, previous thesis works in your department, from emails with some experts, conference proceedings, some company reports, unpublished manuscript sources, some government publications, etc. can be here. Our secondary topic is like journals. We have to look for the journals, we have to look for the books, we have to look for the newspapers and some government publications. And the tertiary level is some index databases, catalogs, encyclopedias, dictionaries, bibliographies, citation indexes, etc. But usually we use for the secondary topic, for example, journals, books, newspaper, and government publications. These are our main source of information. So here you see that there are increasing level of detail. When you go for primary, there is increasing level of detail is there, but when you go for tertiary, there is increasing time to publish, because when you are indexing, when you are preparing databases, catalogs, encyclopedias, it takes time. It takes time. For example, you have secondary publications from the journals, right? Secondary information, secondary knowledge sources from the journals, books, and newspapers. But when it is indexed in a database, it takes time. So first, what you can do is just the primary source and the secondary source. These are the main thing that you will lead you to your main gap, main literature gaps. So these are the sources of literature. Now, how can I get the peer-reviewed academic scientific article? This is our one of the main questions, because sometimes when we give our students to do some research, they become at loss that where to find good articles, good journal published articles. So here, what you can do is, for example, we use several source of publishers for this kind of scientific articles. For example, there is Nature Publishing Group, there is Science, there is Taylor and Francis, there is SCS Publications, there is Elsevier and Science, their database Science Direct, there is Springer, there are open access publications, there is some great journal sources index. For example, we have search engine Google Scholar. It is one of the good way of identifying published articles with some keywords. And there is also ResearchGate, and there is also email and electronic communication. If you can download these articles, because sometimes most of these articles sometimes are not open access, then it is not easy for you to find out. So what you can do, you can email the author, and through electronic communication, you can get the articles. And then what is the next topic is that, sorry. So for example, I wanted to know about this how to use the Google Scholar. For example, I use theories in environmental impact assessment. So I've given these keywords. For example, I wanted to find articles from since 2022. Okay, and from here there are some articles. It gave me some articles, and I wanted to go look for that which one is relevant to me, and then download it for my purpose. And there is also, for example, we can use indexed database. For example, we can use, for example, PubMed, National Library of Medicine. We can use this for different types of studies, also for public health related work and also environmental related work. We can use these databases. There are also multiple other databases. For example, Web of Science. There are different other sources also, which you can use for our research work. So now we have downloaded the article from these types of sources. So our literature review begins. Okay. So here the question is how to read a scientific paper. The first thing is we always have to remember that it is essential to learn how to read a paper quickly but insightfully. Okay. So we downloaded plenty of papers, but we just think that when I will read all those things, because there is a plenty of database I have downloaded, lot of paper I have downloaded. Now I have started reading from here, or I have highlighted with this marker or everywhere, right? So, but what information did I get really? Does all this information important for my work? I have to question this. Okay, it takes time and it will waste your time. So you have to be very technical here. You have to be very tactful here to read this research paper. For example, Here is another screenshot I'm sharing here from my EndNote. For example, there is a topic is a comparative evaluation of the environmental impact assessment legislation of South Africa and Zambia. So what is important for me? It is important for me is to identify the objective of this article from the abstract. For example, so your title shows the objective, but from example I have shown here to determine the extent to which they follow good practices and incorporate emerging environmental issues into EIA. So this is their objective. So their hypothesis is that, therefore they hypothesize that the Zambia legislation does not follow the good practice, hence the low EIA system preference. And then results, however, showed that the two countries are almost on par in terms meeting the criteria used in the study. So this is the outcome. Okay. So what you have to do is find out which one is important. So first read the abstract. Then go for the abstract. If you don't understand the objective, okay, read the introduction part. If you want to know their methods, then go to the method part. Read it down. Write it down also. What are the main factors here? What is the outcome in a Word file or in an Excel file you can use? Okay, so this is the very important part of literature review, to read a scientific papers. Okay, so after reading the scientific papers, you need to go for a reference management tool, because you downloaded so many articles, but you don't know where to store. You have stored in a folder, but you don't know how to manage them. You don't know which article is actually relevant for your work. Okay, so that's why you need to go for a reference management tools. Here I have here shown some reference management tools. For example, there is EndNote, there is Mendeley, there is Zotero, there is some also ProQuest RefWorks. These are the common tools. There are also many more. For example, I always use EndNote. Okay, search, we have to search our database by defining the keyword. This is our purpose. Then we have to save in our PC and index in reference manager. We have to do that and then cite while you write. So this is the second part, because when we are identified those databases, we index in our reference manager. Then we have to start writing our topic, that which topic is important for me, then I write it down. Otherwise I will forget. Okay, because we are humans. Okay, so for example, for an EndNote, I always use these databases. I have note down that this reference management section. For example, I have this impact assessment tools for my work. So I have downloaded all impact assessment relevant work to this folder. Then I indexed it in my EndNote, and then accordingly, I have started working on the topic. So for example, I am write cite while you write. For example, I am using Lu et al. 2018's work. So I cite it here. Okay, and then there is the reference here. So in this way, when with the systematic way I'm working on the literature review, the thing is that it will be always there. So reference will not lost. For example, in this part, I will not use other references. It will be still remain there. It will be easier for me to work later also. So reference management is very much important when you are starting your research work. So as soon as possible, you have to get familiar with any of the tools. For example, you can use EndNote, you can use Mendeley, Zotero, or reference works, but be familiar with it. Be familiar with the tool. So until now, is there any question? Okay, so if there is no question, then I can proceed here. So we are continuing the same topic, the choosing and defining our problem, the literature and the gap. Here, we must first explore thoroughly a wide range of contributions from all related fields to identify our meaningful gap that we can fill. Okay, so that we must accurately appraise the nature of the study that will be needed to fill it. For example, some gaps may be beyond our capacity to fill it. So due to the limits in expertise, time, and resources also, because not all labs in particularly in our country have good resources. Sometimes there is also lack in expertise. There is also limitations of time. For example, we have 3 months to submit a research dissertation for undergrad thesis, or a master's thesis, which sometimes we get only 6 months. So this is a time limitation factor is there. So we have to find out in that short time how much I can contribute, what is useful for me, what is my capacity to do this work. So we have to find it out. So here we should go consult with the mentors. They should ensure that novices not embark on studies with a high risk of failure to make a contribution. So therefore, whether to misjudgment of a literature, weak design, or too many unknowns, we have to they must have to ensure here, because if the students, they think that I want to contribute this big research, there are lots of uncertainties, there is a lot of unknowns, there are a lot of weak design. So the mentors have to guide the problem you have to fix in there. This is the method you should use. Don't get lost. Okay. So whether the gap is large or small, the study design to fill it must be sufficiently rigorous to enable real forward motion in the field. Okay. So this is the large, whether it's large or small, the study design should be in that way sufficiently rigorous to keep that to enable real forward motion in the field. And then here is the thing here. We have to narrow down our topic and writing the research questions, because we have read it down. We have discussed with our supervisor. We have enough questions are there. We have to write it down. Write it down our research questions. For example, we have to choose our research topic. For example, we have chosen the climate change, but we have to narrow it down. For example, I have chosen salinity, but we have to identify the research problem here. So we have identified it's important, because choosing a research topic and developing a clear research question is much harder. So we have to come here. It takes time. Okay. So from here, from when we have clear research question, we create research design with probable methodology to answer them, and then we can write our project or thesis or proposal. So this part is very much important. This part, identify research problem and with a clear research question. So from here, we have to develop the research questions. We have to have some guiding words. For example, I have shown here the examples with my climate change and salinity that I usually work on. So in climate change, we have the broad topic. We have climate change and salinity effect. So what should we do? We should use always that we have studied in our English language class, the WH questions: who, what, where, when, why, how. So for to identify these questions, we can use media, newspaper, popular opinion, etc., to identify this climate change problem, that where it is happening, when it is happening, how it is happening, why, what is the problem here, etc. So second part, we are narrowing down further. What is the effect of climate change and salinity on the environment? So this is the broad questions of what. Okay. So our source should be scholarly article that published in the peer-reviewed journals. Now we are much more narrowing it down. How are climate change and salinity affecting southern Bangladesh? This is much more specific. It should be answered with how and why. Source is also scholarly articles and media and newspaper. And now we are narrowing it down further. How salinity is affecting the drinking water resource there, even more specific. So here we can also question how and why. And here our scholarly sources, our scholarly articles, media, field visit, etc. So what are the mitigation measure? For example, I want to say that mitigation measure can be desalination, planting a desalination system or a reverse osmosis system. So this can be questioned like who, what, where, how, and why. Again, this WH question. So this is also can be identified by scholarly articles. So this is the research questions that we can develop from the broad area to a narrow research field. So now, after writing this research question, what we do is we write down the research objectives. Okay. So research objectives, for example, there are several criteria, and there is the purpose here. I have noted down. This is also taken from the Saunders 2007. The first thing is transparency. What does it mean? The purpose is the meaning of the research objectives. It should be clear and unambiguous. Okay. Specificity. What am I going to do? The purpose of the research objective is clear and easily understood, as are the actions required to fulfill it. Okay. So is it relevant? Relevancy. Why am I going to do this? This research objectives linked to the research question and wider research project is clear. Interconnectivity. How will it help to complete the research project? Here we have to take in together, as I said, the research objectives illustrate the steps in the research process from its start to the conclusion without leaving any gaps. Okay. So there is the fifth element is answerability. Will this be possible? Where shall I obtain data? So here the intended outcome of the research objective is achievable because where is the relates the data, the nature of the data required will be clear or at least implied. For example, I can collect secondary data and do modeling, do some other research, or I can go to field and collect my primary data and do my further research. So this is the answerability. There is also the last question, measurability. Will it be done within the given time? The intended product of the research objective will be evident when it has been achieved. So this is the question from where we can identify that this is okay, this is measurable, this is the objective I have set for, and now I have got this data, and now I can interpret something. So this, when we are writing the objectives, we always have to remember these 6 criteria. And based on these 6 criteria, we have to define our objectives. So writing research questions and objectives, there are 2 ways we can do it. One is deductive approach versus inductive approach. So deductive approach, there are some theories. For example, your research project will be designed to test a theory or to develop a theory. Where you wish to adopt a clear theoretical position that you will test, though the collection of data, your research project will be theory driven and you will be using deductive approach. And where you wish to explore a topic and develop a theoretical explanation as the data are collected and analyzed, your research project will be data driven and you will be adopting an inductive approach. Okay, so this is the basic research questions and objectives, that what we are going to do. Are we looking for deductive approach? We are clearing an clear theoretical position, or we are making a theory? So this is the part we must have to remember when we are writing our research questions and objectives. For example, identify the theories in writing research questions and objectives. For example, here I have shown a pyramid. This is a pyramid. For example, the grand theories. When we are going from base to the top, that is much more very subtle theories, which is actually it's developed in a once in a century or once in a millennia. For example, Newton's gravitational theory of gravity. We know this has been invented like 500 years ago, and this is something that is revolutionary in science. Then there is Einstein's theory of relativity. This is also a revolutionary theory. And then there is the Kuznets curve, environmental Kuznets curve developed by Kuznets, that when we are developing, industrializing, and then our environmental degradation is getting much more problematic. And there is also sustainable development. This is also a theory that developed a few years ago. So the thing is, increasing capacity to change the way we think about the world. And this is the peak theory, because we are not in there, so not everyone is in there. So increasing restrictions in terms of general applicability. Okay, for example, this is applicable, but for general case, this is not much stronger. But the middle range theories, for example, they lack the capacity to change. For example, there are adaptive management system. Okay, adaptive management system, for example, there is climate change problem, so we have to think about some climate change adaptation theory. We have to think about industrial adaptation theory to decrease fossil fuel release. So these are the middle range theories. The last but not the least is the substantive theories. This is restricted to a particular time, particular research setting, group or population or problem. For example, as I have said before, salinity problem. The salinity problem is a substantive theory of climate change. For example, this is limited to the southern part of Bangladesh, not every part of Bangladesh. This is a local problem. But this problem, it might be faced by other part of the world that are close to the coastal areas. And also, this is maybe restricted to a particular time. For example, COVID-19 was restricted to a particular time frame from 2020 to 2022. So this was the peak time that has developed these theories of different types of COVID-19 research. there is a group or population or problem. For example, there are some group theory, a group problem. For example, particular group of people which are vulnerable, or population that has some problem. So this is the things that we have to identify when we are writing our research questions and objectives. That what we are going to do with our question, how we are going to solve it. So what should be their base here. So particularly we work actually in the base part, most people, but obviously there are the middle range people who work in here, and obviously the last part, which are the actually once in a millennia, once in 100 years, once in a century. So these are the things that we have to remember it. Okay. So this has been also taken from Saunders. So now we have to think about the crafting our research proposal. There are some key questions that we have to evaluate when we are writing the research proposal. For example, during our undergrad dissertation, undergrad dissertation or thesis proposal, or master's thesis proposal, our department, university, they give us some tasks to do. For example, they tell us to submit a research proposal. What we do here, for example, we have to define some key questions before key questions to guide and evaluate our research proposal. For example, what am I going to do? Why am I doing this? Why is it worth doing? How does it relate to what has been done before in my subject area? Which theory or theories will inform what I'm going to do, and how will I use it for them? And what is my research question, and what are my research objectives? How shall I conduct my research? These are the basic questions. What is my research design? What type of data do I need? Who and where are my intended participants, if that needed some public participation? How will I gain access to them, to the data or to the public? How shall I select them? How will I collect my data? How will I analyze my data and use this to develop a theoretical explanation? And what data quality issues might I encounter? How will I seek to overcome this? What ethical issues might I encounter at each stage of my research? How will I overcome this? So these are the basic questions that we must have to think about while designing our research proposal. So furthermore, when you are writing it down, we have to give it a title. Obviously, the title will change several times. We have to write down a background. We have to write down our research questions and research objectives just after finishing the background. Then we have to identify the methods, that what will be my research design, what will be my sampling method, who will be my participants, what techniques I will use. For example, it is statistical, it will be laboratory techniques, is it a questionnaire method or data analysis, what kind of issues would be there in the techniques. Will there be any ethical considerations and procedures? For example, when I work with a human participants, I always have to take permission from the university authority or the committee, the ethics committee, that I'm working with the human data collection. They have the consents, and these are I need the permissions here. If you are working with a animal or some kind of organism, you always have to consider with the ethical considerations and the relevant procedures to take permission. So then you write down the expected outcomes. You write it down that what is the expected after the finishing the object of your research proposal and your objectives, what is expected, what you are expecting. You write it down. You have to write down the time scale. For example, the time scale, you have to write down the SNAP chart, your resource required. For example, how much money do you require, how much time, traveling, how much budget you need, then what equipment do you need to collect this data, how many questionnaires do you need, and to collect the questionnaires, do you need any other persons or participants to help you with that? What kind of softwares do you need? You have to find it there. So these are the resources required, and then you write down the references, and then you have your research proposal is draft research proposal is ready. So then you show it to your supervisor, and obviously after discussion with him, you finalize your research proposal. But always make your draft first, then show to your supervisor. So our crafting the proposal is here. Now we have to think about several things. For example, sometimes the literature review, we do some critical review things, and we also do some systematic review. But here, why it's important, the critical review or the systematic review? This part is important because when we are working with the uh, actual project, when it does the actual project starts, then we have to think about the critical review and the systematic review to find out what is the actual gap here. So the much more, it is a much more elaborate than the proposal formatting, formatting for proposal preparation. So because you are working with your main project now. So here you have to literature review is a continuous process. You always have to remember that it ends the day you finish your submit your proposal, or even the day your paper is published, then this literature review will actually end. So although the literature you read will enhance your subject knowledge and help you to clarify the research questions further, only those that are relevant to your research will be included in your review. So do not include some junk materials here. Include only those that are relevant to your research. Reviewing the literature critically will provide the foundation on which your research is built. For example, here I have shown you one diagram that is also taken from the Saunders. You have your research questions and objectives. You define your parameters. There are different types of parameters. You have to think about that, what parameters you are working on. You have to generate and refine the search terms, conduct search, obtain literature, then you evaluate, record, start drafting the review, redefine parameter. Because sometimes you have to redefine it. You have to change those parameters, change the keywords, and add another one. Generate and refine the search terms again. Okay. Then conduct search, obtain literature, evaluate, record, and from here again update and revise your draft. Redefine parameters. Sometimes it's not a one-step process. It's actually several step process. Okay, so redefine your parameter, generate and refine search term, conduct search, again obtain literature, evaluate, record, and this written critical review of the literature. So when you do your critical review of the literature, that means that your introduction part is ready. You have your background is ready. Okay, so this is the important part of important purpose of critical review. And this has been also taken from the Saunders. And then defining search parameters for a research question. We have been different times we have to ask these questions by students, that how we are going to define the search parameters for a research question. We have to think about that. Okay, language of publication should be English. Okay, we are not working with French or Japanese or Chinese things, so we have to focus on the English language here. Subject area, broad aspect, environment, public health, for example, you can use IIT or any other field. Sector, for example, I work with climate change, salinity, or water quality, etc. This could be the sector. Geographical area, for example, I work with Bangladesh, so I focus in here. Publication period, for example, broad aspect, last 10 years, narrow aspect, maybe 5 years. You have to think about that, or talk to your supervisor, what he tells you to do. For example, he can be, he can ask you to focus only 2 years only. Okay, so your publication period is important during the literature survey. Also literature type. Is it referred journals and books only, or peer-reviewed articles? What, or you are including also gray literatures, for example, from newspaper articles or something like that. So literature type is important here. For example, there is a Boolean logic that we always use during our search term, like a link term. And this is for purposes for narrow search, recruitment, and interviewing and skill. This is from the business students book. So I just use that example. Or only articles containing all these search terms are selected, or when we widens the search, for example, recruitment or selection, articles with at least one search term selected. Then we have not, exclude terms from search, for example, recruitment, not selection. Here also selects articles containing the search term recruitment that do not contain the search term selection. Okay, so use words Punctuation, use word systems to pick up. Here different word forms, motivates. For example, selects articles with motivate, motivation, motivating, etc. All will come in your search term. And there is the question mark with wildcard, picks up different spellings, behavior, that is UK English or US English, all things will be included here. So select articles with behavior or behavior, or both in American English or in US English, in UK English altogether. So here you will define your search parameters. Then your critical review purpose is shown here, that get in the habit of asking yourself some questions, that what does this mean? Why is he or she, the author, drawing that conclusion? Okay. When you are reading, I told you just before that when you are reading an article, we have to read it quickly and insightfully. But at the same time, we have to ask ourselves questions that what does this mean? What does this method mean? So how he designed this method? Why is he or she drawing this conclusion? It could be other things. What are the gaps here? So always ask yourself the question. Evaluate the relevance and value of literature to your research. A checklist can be developed by you. For example, relevance evaluation, and there is the value evaluation. We have given here. For example, how recent is the reference? Does the author topic have similar works? That what are those? You identify the author's different articles on the same topic or the different topics. Write it down, find it out. So is it like 5 years old? Is it like within the 5 years range or 2 years range? Does the item, when you check for the value evaluation, does the item appear to be biased? For example, does it use the illogical argument, emotionally toned words, or appear to choose only those cases that support the point being made? Okay, you do the value evaluation. Does the item, objectives, conclusions, theory, etc., meet your relevance criteria for inclusion or exclusion? For example, when you are working with a literature review, you have to write it down, your inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria also. That's why you are including this particular research item in your research, and why you are excluding that particular item to your research. You have to note it down. What are the methodological omissions within this work? For example, sample collection, how much sample it is. Was it using only one sample or two sample, 5 sample, or is it has elaborate samples? What was the data collection method? What is the data analysis method? So third question is, does the item support or contradict your arguments? For either it will be probably worth reading. Is the precision sufficient? Does it provide future guidance? You have to note it down. Okay, purpose. This is the purpose. Okay, so this is also taken from Sanders, and here I have shown you from critical review to systematic review. This is also the method of systematic review, almost actually similar, but the systematic review, you note it down your process also. Okay, so a systematic review is a method of reviewing the literature that employs a comprehensive pre-planned strategy to locate existing literature, evaluate the contribution, analyze the synthesize and findings, and report the evidence in order to reach conclusions about what is known and, more importantly, what is unknown. Your unknown point is your gap, your literature gap. So from here, you have to find out. So before actually starting your actual research, you do this kind of systematic way of systematic review also. So for example, here I have used the Prisma 2020 flow diagram for identifying the for research gaps and unknowns, that what are what I don't know. So first of all, identification, you record identified from database and registers. For example, you have used all the Boolean search item, that which are recorded in your database. Duplicate records should be removed. That how many duplicate database you have removed. You have a record marked as ineligible by automation tool. How many were there? Records removed for other reasons. You have to note it down here, like how many were there. So for example, you have identified 2,000 data research articles initially. From there, you have removed maybe 1,500. So from 1,500, you have to note down that which were duplicate, which were ineligible, which were removed for other reasons. So record screen, you note it down, for example, 500. From 500, you have further excluded. Why? You note it down here, number. Reports sought for retrieval, how many were there? And reports not retrieved, and how many screen here. so this is the screening process. So reports assessed for eligibility. Maybe you have finally again exclude here for reason number 1, reason 2, reason 3. For example, some article may had English language, not English language. For example, it was written in Chinese, so you don't include there. And some articles maybe had not enough sampling, or somewhere maybe review article, but in a systematic review article, you don't use systematic review article, another review article, or a critical review article. So you have to note it down that for these are the reasons those articles were not included in the literature. So finally, studies included in review and reports of included studies, how many were there. So then from here, you have to proceed for the systematic review. Okay, so when establishing a checklist, whether a project may be suitable for a systematic review, is there uncertainty about the effectiveness of the policy, service, or intervention? Is there a need for evidence about the likely effects of a policy, service, or intervention? Despite a large amount of research on the topic, do key questions remain unanswered? Is there a need for a general overall picture of the research evidence on the topic of direct future use? Is an accurate picture of past research and associated methods needed to help develop new methods? So if any of the questions to this answer of this, any of these questions is yes, then yes, your project may be suitable for a systematic review. And yes, sometimes our students, because they have lack of instruments, they go for systematic review. So from here, our second part starts the philosophy of onion philosophy of research. This is the famous scenario of the Shrek, the movie, Disney movie. Here, Shrek is actually explaining that why layers, because why onion have layers and ogres have layers, right? So because it is about the things that they are working, we have to think about, because even our people have layers, because we know people from the outer side, but inside they're different. So similarly, research, when you look in from the outer part, that is one thing, and when you go inside part, layer by layer, that is another different thing. So the philosophy of research is very much important here. As a researcher, we need to peel the research onion to its core to uncover layers of meaning which enable us to understand the phenomenon we are seeking to understand. It was taken from the Sinha et al. 2018, and as an onion has layers, as a researcher, you work from the outside to the outside of the onion inwards. You will face a range of choices that progress from high level and philosophical to a tactical and practical in nature. So that's why our onion philosophy is very much important, and that's why I have shown in front the figure of onion, dissected onion. So this onion layer, for example, we did take, we will talk about several things. For example, research philosophy is a set of beliefs your research is based on. For example, it can be positivism or interpretivism or pragmatism. We'll talk about it one by one. Research approaches, the broader method you will use. For example, is it inductive, is it deductive, qualitative, or quantitative? Already we have talked something about inductive and deductive process. So we'll maybe in the some time later, we'll talk about the qualitative and quantitative. The research strategies, how you will conduct the research. Is it experimental? Is it action oriented, or is it a case study? Choices of method, for example, how many methods you will use. Is it a mono method? Is it a mixed method or multi-method? There is a time horizon also, the number of points in time at which you will collect your data. Maybe it's a cross-sectional study or a longitudinal study. There are techniques and procedures, for example, data collection methods, data analysis techniques, and sampling strategies, etc. So these are the main 5 core issues which has been drawn by Saunders in 2007 after the Shrek movie. So this is the actual figure where you can see here, right? So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers here. You can see at the last the last layer, that is the outer layer, is a philosophy, that is your positivism of research, realism, interpretism, or pragmatism. In the second layer from the outside is deduction, abduction, or induction. Then your methodology part, you use mono method quantitative or qualitative. You can use multi-method quantitative, multi-method qualitative. There may be mixed method simple or mixed method complex issues. There is also the techniques of research. For example, it can be experiment in the lab, it can be survey, it can be archival research, case study, ethnography, it can be action research, grounded theory, or narrative inquiry. Then your time horizon, it's the cross-sectional or longitudinal, and then finally your data collection and data analysis. This is the last part, or the core part, techniques and procedures. So this is the onion that we are going to talk about now. So first layer, the research philosophy. Okay, so here we have to I have drawn all this term: pragmatism, positivism, realism, and interpretivism. Okay, then which part is actually useful for which discipline? For example, not all research is used in the scientific field like IT, or in the environmental science, or maybe the social science. It's different. So here, for example, we have one view, that is ontology, the researcher's view of the nature of reality or being. This is the mostly used by the social and business field researchers. Okay, this part is not actually useful for the science researchers, science researchers from environmental science or public health or medical science, or other groups. And there is also epistemology, the researcher's view regarding what constitute acceptable knowledge. For example, this is mostly used for the scientific research by the science disciplines. Okay, so here we have used pragmatism. For example, we can use external multiple view chosen to best enable answering our research question. Positivism, here we use external, objective, and independent of social actor. Realism, it is objective, exists independently of human thoughts and beliefs or knowledge of their existence, realist, but is interpreted through social conditioning. For example, critical realist. So interpretism, pretivism, this is socially constructed, subjective, and this may change over time. And epistemology, here, this is focused on practical or applied research, integrating different perspectives to help interpret the data. For example, we can work here climate change data of salinity, or model a temperature data with rainfall or something like that. Positivism, only observable phenomena can provide credible data, and facts focus on causality and law-like generalizations, reducing phenomena or simplest elements. Realism is actually, for example, it is based on the lab-based research, observable phenomena, provide credible data, facts, etc., or sometimes you collect data from the population. Sometimes insufficient data means inaccuracy also. Focus on explaining within a context or context. And interpretivism, subjective meanings and social phenomena, focus upon the details of situation, reality behind these details, subjective meanings, motivation, fact, actions, etc. So you have to find it out in that way. So in the last part is axiology, the researcher's view of the role of values in research, and this is also used by the social and business research, not quite useful for the scientific methods like researchers like IT or environmental science, or from other fields or mathematics or any other fields. So here, positivism, values play a large role in interpreting results, the researcher adopting both objective and subjective points of view. Realism, research is undertaken in a value-free way. The researcher is independent of the data and maintain an objective stance. Here, interpretivism, research is value-laden. The researcher is biased by worldviews, cultural experiences, and upbringing. This will impact on the research. And pragmatism, research is value-bound. The researcher is part of what is being researched, cannot be separated, and so will be subjective. And here, the data collection methods. This is the important part, because what will be our data system, collection system. For example, positivism, we use mixed or multiple method design. Sometimes it can be qualitative, sometimes it can be quantitative. In realism, it is highly structured. We have to use large samples, measurement, quantitative, but can use qualitative also. In interpretism, methods chosen must fit the subject matter. It can be either quantitative or qualitative, or you can use mixed also. Pragmatism, usually it has small samples, in-depth investigations, and usually qualitative. For example, you work on a key informant interview or expert opinion research, etc. So this is the research philosophy. So when you are working on here, you have to think about that what will be your data collection method and according to your philosophy. So this is our layer 2. This is our research approaches. Here already talked about this, that deduction and deductive approach and inductive approach. And here we also added abduction approach from research to research. For example, we have to think about 4 criteria: logic, generalizability, use of data, and theory. Okay. So in deduction, what is the logic? In a deductive inference, when the premises are true, the conclusion must also be true. This is the deduction. Induction, in a inductive inference, known premises are used to generate untested conclusion. So from this untested conclusion, might lead to another research. But in abductive inference, known premises are used to generate testable conclusion. Okay. So what we have hypothesized, when we test it, it is the conclusion. Generalizability, generalizing from the general to the specific. In induction, it is generalizing from the specific to general, from a specific problem to a generalized problem. But in abduction, it is generalizing from the interactions between specific and general. And then the use of data. Data collection is used to evaluate propositions or hypotheses related to an existing theory. You are actually proving the existing theory, but in induction, you are actually developing a conceptual framework or a pattern. For example, data collection is used to explore a phenomena, identify themes and patterns, and create a conceptual framework. Data collection in abduction is usually used to explore a phenomena, identify themes and pattern, locate this in a conceptual framework, and then test this hypothesis, and then to a subsequent data collection and so forth, you draw a conclusion. So finally, our final criteria is theory. Theory falsification or theory verification. You either test a theory, falsify it, or verify it, or make it true. So in induction, you actually generating a theory and then it's building a theory. In abduction, theory generation is there. Also, maybe modification. You are modifying a theory. You may also incorporate existing theory where is appropriate, or build a new theory or modify the existing theory. So there are vast idea of research approaches which you can work with in the layer 2. In our layer 3, that is research strategies, what you're going to do. If you are going to a lab scientist, you are going for an experiment, you are going for a survey, you can do for archival research. For example, you have different government documents you do from different time frame. For example, you have government documents from 1990 to 2023, and you have collected all those documents and do some content analysis. You can go for a case study. For example, you can work with a particular area with a fecal sludge management unit. You are developing a fecal sludge management unit, so you work on that. Particularly, it will be a case study, just a single, maybe or 2 or 3 comparative analysis. There is also ethnography. It's particularly used by the anthropologists. Different, for example, in different types of anthropological time frame, what are the recorded information are there. There is also action research. For example, we know that there are some tomato species which are saline tolerant. So our action research would be, okay, now we are going to plant that in a coastal area and see what is their production in the saline soil, in the reality check. So this is an action research is there. Grounded theory may be there. For example, we have different theory which can be identified. A narrative inquiry can be there, which is sometimes mostly based on qualitative research. So when we do a classical experiment strategy, we have a control group, and then we have also an experimental group. We have for example, we have group members assigned at random, or we can have dependent variable measured. We can have interventional manipulation of dependent variable, or sometimes we have dependent variable measured. We test the hypothesis in a classical experimental strategy in different analysis. So from here, we can also go for the action research spiral. For example, we have given the one example of action research. For example, we have the context and purpose, we have diagnosed it, we have planned it, we have taken action, we have evaluated it. Then we go for the diagnosis again, planning, taking action 2, evaluate it, and then we can also have a action 3. For example, we have diagnosed, planning, taking action, evaluating. So we have these 3 types of experimental in the action research also, and find out what is the outcome is there, whether they were successful or not, based on the different types of variables. So here is another. For example, if we collect samples, for example, population opinion or data with a human sample or other samples, for example, maybe children or some male adult or female adult. So these are the things. Then we have to take this you cannot always take all the people in our research. So from for example, a questionnaire survey is there, maybe a case or maybe element or a questionnaire sample. We can identify some specific people who will be the representing the population. This is the individual cases. So from here, we can draw the conclusion from after taking data analysis and all other things. So this is our research strategies. Number 4 is our choice of methods of research design. This is the important part here, because what methods we are using in our research. Is it a quantitative study? Is it a completely mathematical modeling or something like that? Or is it a qualitative, some human opinion I'm looking for? So sometimes there is a mixed method also. For example, multi-method, it can use quantitative method, it can use qualitative method, it can use in a mixed way. So in the multi-method, it can use the multi-method quantitative study. For example, I'm using remote sensing and GIS to identify what is the blue-green infrastructure of Dhaka city. This is the quantitative method. I identified the area. I identified how much area is with the green area, and which part is not completely urbanized, or which part is barren. How much water body is there. Okay, this is the multi-method. And there's multi-method qualitative study. For example, here I can use also expert opinion that why this urban green space urban blue-green space has been losing, and what is the important observations here over the course of time, and why what should we do for the future to increase more urban growth. So it can be a qualitative study for multi-method. And there is also mixed methods. We have some mixed model research. We have some mixed method research also. But when we go from simple to complex, is that mono method. When you are using mono, it's usually simple, partially integrated single phase sequential mixing is there. But when we go for particularly multiple methods, that is actually complex, because fully integrated double or multiple phase concurrent mixing is there. So the methodological choice is there. Okay, that usually which method you are using. For example, when you are using that only quantitative method, this is much more easier to deal with. But when you are working with mixed methods, it's really difficult, and also it's difficult to publish, and also it's difficult to convince people that when you are using qualitative method, particularly when you are working with the scientific research and also using the social science research. So the choice of methods and research design is very much important here, that what you are going to do, which method you are going to use. Now the last layer, I think, oh no, this is the 5th layer, that's this time horizon. Here you have the cross-sectional method, that is investigation is concerned with the study of a particular phenomena at a specific time. For example, now that there is a COVID, you are using a cross-sectional method, but you don't know. But when you are checking this this specific population over the course of time, for example, you have same population over the period of 10 years later. In 2020, now the same population will be studied in 2030, same population will be studied in 2040, same population will be studied in 2050, then this is actually a longitudinal method, the data collection of repeatedly over an extended period of time. So usually cross-sectional method is actually less expensive, but when you are actually working with longitudinal, it is very, very expensive in terms of time also, and also in terms of money. So our last layer is data analysis in the research onion philosophy. This explains how the data used in the research are collected and analyzed. It also explains the source of data, the research design, the sample size, sample ethics, sample limitations, the research reliability, and also the validity. So data collected could be primary data or secondary data, as we have discussed earlier. For example, I want to work with a climate change model. So what I do is I have collected secondary temperature data, secondary rainfall data, secondary river flow data from different organizations, and then prepare some models. So this can be secondary level, or I'm working in a lab. I'm generating some data with the microorganism and with some testing some different types of antibiotics or something like that. So this is the data, either can be primary or secondary. Direct data, it is obtained directly from the source. Secondary data is opposite of primary data. It is usually collected from indirect data. It can be also numerical or non-numerical data. For example, sometimes we look for some numbers. I have given some drugs based on some concentration. I'm looking for the microbial activities there. So it can be numerical or non-numerical data. Sometimes I'm working with some content analysis. So it is actually the words extracted from the different documents or content. So it can be non-numerical data. So it is there. And here I'm showing the overall this research union philosophy. This has been constructed by Mardiana 2015, and how it can be used in IT related research. For example, we have seen that philosophy, approach, method, strategy, time horizon, data collected, and it can be, for example, positivism. It can be approach can be deductive, methods can be quantitative, strategy can be experimental, time horizon it can be either cross-sectional or longitudinal. So numerical, and it can be data collection is numerical. Positivism, but it is deductive. Mixed method is quantitative, but strategy is survey. It can be either cross-sectional or longitudinal. Data collected can be numerical. Interpretivism, inductive. If that is inductive, data can be qualitative or archival research. Sometimes the time horizon can be cross-sectional, and data collected is non-numerical. Interpretivism, here inductive, data collection method can be qualitative, case study oriented. It can be a time horizon cross-sectional or non-numerical. Interpretivism, inductive, it can be qualitative. Ethnography, it can be cross-sectional, non-numerical. Interpretivism, inductive, method can be qualitative. Strategy, action research. Time horizon, cross-sectional. Data collection, non-numerical. So when we have all these three philosophy applied, it can be approach can be abductive or deductive. It can be approach method can be quantitative and qualitative. Strategy can be design research, cross-sectional and longitudinal in time horizon, and it can be also data collection can be both numerical and non-numerical. So I am not discussing further here. So this is the onion research that is taken for information system for researcher. And now we are approaching to the research ethics, which is our most important part in our topic today also, after the onion philosophy. As you know that there are different types of research materials we work with. Sometimes we do work with the animals, for example, a dog or a cat or a mouse in our laboratory, particularly pharmaceutical people, they work with that in drug discoveries. And also there are some works we work with the human. For example, we collect data from a human interview, key informant interview, questionnaire survey. So during this work, we always have to take some permissions from the ethical perspective. So for example, here also we have to focus on several factors. For example, we have to focus on the honesty and integrity. We have to focus on protection of human subjects, care of animal subjects, responsible publication, confidentiality, respecting copyright, and objectivity also. So these are the things, research ethics, that we must have to think about when we are working and publishing or doing research with human or animal things. So there is why it's important, because most people think of ethics as a morals. They think of rules or distinguishing between right and wrong. But in research, that is also very much important. Research ethics are norms that serve the aims or goals of research and apply to people who conduct scientific research or other scholarly or creative activities. Okay, so when we work with animal, you must have to declared that this animal care was there. Okay, this some responsible animal care was there. When you work with a human being, you have to tell that this human specimen, they remain anonymous. You are not revealing their confidential information, like what is their name, what is their age, etc., etc. So you must have to be strict in there. So ethics in research is important because promoting aims of the research such as knowledge, truth, and avoidance of error. And here is also one of the most important thing, because sometimes we heard that people fabricate data, people falsify data, they give wrong information. So when there is falsification or fabrication of data, actually, if ethics committee find out, then there are actually tremendous different types of things. Just few days ago, maybe you have heard that there are some scientists, some green chemist from Spain. He has been given suspension of 13 years without what to say, well, without salary or honorarium. So he has been given because he has some collaborative work with some other institutes which he didn't disclose in his institute. So for example, it has some collaboration with Russia or some Saudi Arabia, etc., and published frequent publication, like every day one article, which is actually inhuman in if you think. And he actually agreed that he has used some artificial intelligence while writing those paper. So this is important here because promoting ethical standards in collaborative work such as trust, accountability, mutual respect, and fairness is important. So example, guidelines of authorship is there. For example, we sometimes submit an declaration of interest in an article that all authors have maintained their have no conflict of interest. We have copyright and patenting policies. Sometimes we have data sharing policies, confidentiality, funding authority, etc. Sometimes we have to submit the ethical permission from the university in a letterpad. So these are the things that we must have to remember in our research. Then there is public accountability. For example, federal policies on research misconduct, conflicts of interest, the human subjects protections and animal care and use, it must have to declare there to the public. Public support for research. For example, there are many research funds which come from the public. People are more likely to fund a research project if they can trust the quality and integrity of the research. If there is less integrity, less quality, people will not trust us and they will not, obviously, they will not fund us. Moral and social values. A researcher who fabricates data in a clinical trial may harm or even kill patients. So we must have to be remembered that there is a moral and social values for drug research and medical research also. This is important here. And we cannot actually falsify and fabricate data to get us published. So we must have to remember that. And there is another important part is plagiarism. Plagiarism is a serious ethical issues and which we must have to avoid in research. There are several things we must have to consider here because it's a form of scientific misconduct defined as authoring ideas or works that has been produced by someone else or from someone's own previous publications and attempting to publish such work without properly citing the original author and publication. So authors who are guilty of plagiarism, actually they are ignorant that what constitutes the plagiarism. This has been articulated by Over et al. In 2013. So how to avoid these issues? First of all, don't copy. When you are reading an article, don't just copy that line. You understand what the author is trying to say, as we have in previous we have said that ask yourself the question that what the authors meant here. Write in your own words, and when in doubt, always cite. But you don't have to cite that word by word. Sometimes you have taken a grammatical to or something and etc. You don't have to cite there, right? So also you should not recycle any images. You take the images copied from the author. No, you should not do it. Try to identify which figure is useful for you, which table is useful for you, which text is useful for you. And without citing, do not use any image, figure, tables, etc. or text from without any citation, and always ask permission to the publisher that if you use any secondary materials. So this is the way you can avoid plagiarism in our research. And the last but not the least is our last topic is publication process. I have articulated this part from Santos et al. And as you can see that you have done your planning, you have done your research process, you have done your data collection, you have done your analysis, now your publication process begins. But actually this is the most important and hard part, because the writing process is the most important part of the publishing process. You have written a thesis, but that is not actually published to any reputed journal or peer-reviewed journal. Okay, so publishing an article is like telling a scientific story. This was quoted by my professor, my PhD supervisor, Professor Pan. I forgot to write his name here. So now the question is, when should you start writing? Okay, this is the question, that when should you write for your publication? Actually, you start writing for your publication the day you started planning your research. That is the day. But that was your initial draft. But now you have structured a full thesis. You have structured a full report, and now you should write your you're going to write for your draft. First draft. So ideally, you should start writing as soon as you start your research process. We have already been telling you. So during the research process, you produce drafts of your research methodology and findings that you now need to transform into an article, into a paper. So here you need to follow a strategy. And the strategy is the publication process. I'm showing you, this is the article from Santos et al. 2015. He said that always follow the journal guideline. Okay, journal guideline. When you are aim to publish in a specific journal, follow that guideline. Okay, what is the author guideline you have here? What should be the structure? How many word content is there? What should be, is there any limit for figures or tables or any other thing? What should be the abstract, how many word content should be in the abstract. For example, in nature publications, you can only find that there may be less than 100 words for an abstract. So, or maybe some other journals may prefer 200 or 300 words, etc. So check if the research here falls within the journal scope also, which is also important. For example, you are working in an IT, you are going to publish in an environmental science journal, maybe it will be difficult for you. So you have to look at the scopes of that journal. Third is check the reference style. What is the style given in the for that journal? You always have to abide that, follow that style. Section and subsection style, you should follow that also. Figure table limits, format of tables and figures, and then word limits is also there, because sometimes some journals prefer within 8,000 word limitation. Sometimes some journals follow within 10,000 3,000 word limitation, etc. So you have to follow that guideline. Abstract word limits also already told. Read some of the published article from the journal to get the style. You have to download some articles and see what is the structure, overall structure, what is the style there. So this is the important thing. Before publishing the process, before publication, you look into those guidelines here. And submitting papers without following the journal guidelines actually dramatically increase the possibility of rejection also. So don't just write it down and submit to the article. Okay, so to the submission system, you have to follow these guidelines and then articulate your paper and then submit it with a little bit of time. So this is the guideline process here. Now we are going to talk about what we need further. Use an adequate paper structure. Adequate paper structure means commonly accepted research paper should have a title, abstract, and keywords, and be divided into several sections. For example, it should have an introduction, a methodology section, and sub-method section. You can have a results and discussion section, conclusion, and references. There is a structure here. Sometimes they prefer with a numerical numbering. For example, it can be 1 or 2, 2.1, 2.3, etc., or 3.1, 3.2, etc. So use that structure as much as possible. That what is their style here. So for then the title. Your title is your mini abstract. You always have to remember that. Paint a quick picture of the key ideas. The title should be clear, unambiguous, and not cute. The words should reflect the focus of your article. Put the most important words first. Some journals require running title, short title, etc. But always write the title last. The title should reflect your research, because similar to telling story, sometimes you write it down, you draft it, but then your professor, after subsequent checking, he may change the title. So your title, you draft a title, but it should be there, but your professor may change it. Or even when you submit to the editor and the reviewer may change the title. They give some suggestions, and you may have to change the title. So this here, actually, I'm here telling you the strategy given by my professor, which I have been talking about. My professor, my PhD supervisor, he told me that always start writing from the methodology. Okay, usually when we are starting the introduction, we may get lost. Also, we may get lost where to start it. So the first topic is you have already given your method properly. Start writing from the method and methodology. It should always come first. Number 2, you have your data, you have your collected data. So you draw your figures, tables, and the results. Step 3, interpret your results and write it down. Step 4, while you write the discussion, write your introduction and maintain your references. This is should be done in a simultaneous way. Step 5, draw your conclusion, but keep a link with the introduction. Okay. And step 6, then after writing your conclusion, you write down your abstract and keywords. Step 7, the last one is to write the title and put the author's affiliation, and your final document is ready. But remember that this is not the final doc. This is actually your first draft. which you show to your supervisor. Okay. This is your actually, which I have already told you. This is your first step. Now discuss with your supervisor or supervisors, collaborators for in-house review, because they will find out different types of flaws from there, and you take feedback from them. Check for plagiarism. So with the software, you can check the grammar check, proofreading, any change in figures, graphs, tables, text, equations, etc., citations, according to your professor's suggestions. Do in-house revisions and proofreading before final submission. It takes time actually. Usually it takes a lot of time, not just time. Check if all the journal style has been met. So take your time. And here I shown you one of the famous picture on the final doc drawn by George Cham, who is a I think he has a PhD in robotics, and also he's a comic artist. Okay, so here you can see that he has the student has drawn his final doc, completed his final doc. He has given his professor for review, and professor is checking, given some comments, and actually these comments took a lot of time. And I ultimately it took a lot of time, lot of doc, final doc. It's several dates. For usually I used to check with the renamed with the dates that this is the document, and usually it always with the review comments, it is always becoming red all over the documents, becoming a red letter day, something like that. So after the final document, this has been what you do is for the submission process. Okay, you have prepared your final document. Now you are submitting to the article. You are submitted to the journal. What is happening there? It's go to the editors. Actually, what the editors do, if they usually is not within the scope or doesn't fit with the journal, doesn't find it novelty, then usually he go for a desk rejection. You then what you do is revise your article, find another journal, okay, and revise and resubmit. If that is not within the style, then editor is usually ask you to revise and resubmit according to the guideline. Usually, if there is some usual, it goes for a editor's review. It goes for a reviewer 1. It can have a reviewer 2. Sometimes it has reviewer 3. For example, for my article, one of the articles for PhD, which research, which has been published from PhD research, it has like 4 reviewers. Okay, so it can have many, sometimes 7 also. So reviewer 1, they check, they give some comments, they submit to the editor. Reviewer 2, he has to give some comments, they submit to the editor. From the editor, they generate some other comments. It can be also multiple comments. So from here, they can give you a major revision or a minor revision. Very rare is they accept it with it very easily. It is actually done, usually it is only some rare cases it's done with the accepted paper with a further revision, and then paper is published. But usually from the editor's review, it is improved. From improvement, it is sent to the author, and the author, after submitting all those comments, they find it as submit to the editor again, and finally the paper is accepted. So it's actually sometimes it takes time until 2 years or sometimes 1 year also, but at least in a very good journal, for example, in Nature or in other something like that, in a Q1 journal, it takes usually 1 year. It's very hard to publish in less than 1 year from a Q1 journal. At least 6 months is required. So from here, what you do is your article is published now. So now you can, for example, share it to your social media or any other things that, for example, okay, I have, when I publish it is from environmental impact assessment to strategic environmental assessment in Bangladesh evolution. In evolutionary studies, this article was published in impact assessment review, which is the Q1 journal. I shared it with my colleagues in the LinkedIn. So from here, this your article is done. But it took for me to publish this article. Actually, the drafting, it took me around 4 years to make this draft, because this article is one of the articles that I worked on a side project, and but good thing is there. We had this, one of the Erasmus fund was there to work on these issues on this article, and it has been published in a very good Q1 journal. So it took some time, and the process was actually not easy. We had several comments which we needed to address here. So we are almost finding our going in our last slide, I think. So what is academic research in a nutshell that we have learned so far? Okay. Um, Academic research is actually takes a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of resources. You have to read a lot, you have to think a lot, you have to write a lot, and then you have to maybe uh, cut it down, strike it through. Okay, so these are the things that you have to do. For example, I have here shown one of the science researchers from Twitter. She said that academic writing is spending 4 uninterrupted hours in a coffee shop just to write 2 paragraphs. Okay, so this is actually hard. Imagine you write it a full paragraphs, then you cut it down, write it, you strike it through, because you push the delete button because you didn't find this is actually suitable for the purpose. So you have to start all over again. So this happens. But when you are working in the research academia, you are working for a research project, even for in the industry, you have to go through all this process just to get your research proposal accepted, your research done, and your publication process accepted in a good Q1 journal. So this is our academic research in a nutshell that has been done from crafting research, from planning to publishing. And if you have any question, you can ask me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shami. Thanks a lot. It was really a beautiful session. And for myself, I can say that I learned a lot. Okay. I don't know about the others, but it was really useful. So from the audience, if you want to ask any question, you may directly ask her, or I think you may even email her, and she will reply the email if she has time. So any
hello,
question
ma'am.
here? Yes.
Ma'am, to Shami, ma'am, I have one question actually. The philosophy that you shared with us, the onion philosophy. Now, and there are a lot of theories regarding research methodology.
Right.
Understanding all that and then apply, I think it's a tough job. But if you can like simply tell us, like as a young researcher, we are embarking on with new topics, and we don't know much about that field, so we are learning, and we are starting our research from the very beginning. So how we can actually implement that philosophy, how we can actually start uh, for the really beginners, if you can share something.
Thank you very much for this good question. So when I tell you my experience, okay, when I started my research, actually, I don't tell I tell you that I have started research from the undergrad thesis, but that obviously that was nothing at all. Okay, always tell that my research career actually started when I did my PhD. So that was the time when I learned everything. Okay, but before that, what I understand is because I didn't study research methodology myself. Okay, my undergrad courses, they did not have me research methodology, and I was actually struggling what to do, because there are different types of way, and where to start, where to begin. And obviously I did some research, but obviously that was not impactful or any other thing. I must have to admit there. So my research as a researcher, my planning, everything else, it started when I was in a PhD student. And then actually I started to think independently, because one of the most core point of the research is how to start thinking independently. As soon as you do that, you have to your training as a PhD researcher begins. Okay, so this is the most important part, that thinking independently uh, and become trained up. And good thing is that now there are different types of research organizations, independent research organizations, which are providing different types of uh, training on how to become a researcher, how to publish paper, etc., etc. So, but when you are a novice, what you have to do is, for example, my students, what they do, they go for a defining a problem in the planning phase. They think about this, what they do. Actually, I show you from here. Yes. For example, what is this? Yeah. Let's think about that. Developing the research question. For example, my students, they come up with the idea that, Madam, I want to do research on climate change, but climate change has huge subsectors, huge subsections. Where to do, what to do. I always tell them, think about the problems, where you should start. But it's not, climate change is a huge topic. You can have a, you can work on modeling, you can work on different types of subsectors like water. You can work on subsectors like atmosphere. You can work on social sectors also. You can work on different types of sectors. Which is your which is your suitable sector? What you want to work with? So I always then they define the problem. Okay, and then they think about, okay, they explore some things, they start reading the literatures. The same thing that I have shown you, I always show them, okay, start reading the literature. But because when you start reading the literatures, you can start the ideas. Often we find that articles with saying that their article is so much novel. uh, Also their research is so much novel, but the thing is that the researcher himself, he didn't read much more literature. Already the research is there. Okay, the issue is there. Here the supervisors, they have to guide him or her. um, because students, they think that their idea is novel, but when you search in the Google Scholar with that same keyword, you find that there are a lot of articles that already have been there. So this is an issue. Okay, this is an issue, that novelty is a factor here. You don't find that thing. So you have to discuss with the supervisor that what is your plan, what you want to do. Take guidelines from him, and also be up to date with the latest research, latest field, that what should be the future, and think about the visionary things also, that what can this research lead to the next 20 years or 30 years from now on, or even 5 years from now on. What will it give us? For example, I can tell you that when I started with working with the salinity, very few people work on that sector. Only maybe from my department, Dr. Mustafiz Rahman, Mashur Ait, and other people, some other people, they started working on it. So during that phase from 2012 to 2016, we worked a lot of on these salinity issues. It was in that time, it was a new thing, and also a hot topic. It's still a hot topic because salinity in the southern part of Bangladesh is still a very hot topic, still a problematic issues, that how we can solve these issues. So you have to think about that. What is the problem here? What is the novel here? What is the hot topic here? Okay, so what will be the future here? Because for sometimes you cannot see the solution, so you have to think about that. Think about those narrow career also. For example, when I started in PhD, my work was on dissolved organic matter. I had to work on the different types of lakes and lake and identify what are the dissolved organic matter in them, what is their characteristics, how to find them, how they degrade over the course of time in different, if I expose them to sunlight. The same thing actually I applied in my one of the research, or one of my master students' research, which I have shown you. I think it is in here, yeah, in the landfill leachate. That I have collected those leachate and how they work. Obviously, I guided my students. She has some idea on some substance degradation. Then I asked her that it is not possible for me because I do not have the resource. But can you work on this thing? Okay, can you work on this leachate and degrade it? Check the photo degradation over time and what it becomes. I don't know. Let's see. So from there, she collected those data and different types of characterization, and I had to interpret also. Obviously, she's not the expert one. I had to help her. So this is the way we have to work in collaborate with the students and the teachers together, and also define your problem, define your subject area, define your sector which you want to work with. This is the suggestion from my side. Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now I'd like to invite Sharni Bashak, ma'am, our guest, to say something.
I stop sharing now.
Ma'am, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Uh, so, so let me. Hi, hello everyone. Can you see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Risala Tassin Khan, coordinator of the Women in Computing IEEE Bangladesh chapter. It's a great opportunity to talk here, and also it's so nice to hear all about the crafting the research methodologies about from I think everything from A to Z. I think our madam, Shami madam, has already covered everything from scratch to the pro level. So it's all done now. So far, I think how much time I got so far, I will get so far.
Ma'am, do you have a presentation or something?
Yeah, I have 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Will
10
you
minutes
let
is
me
okay.
allow?
10,
Okay.
10, 15
So
minutes.
okay. So I'm quickly going to the simple example of a maybe subject in computer science, and we'll show a quick demonstrations of a exam from an example of my paper. Okay. So can I share my screen now?
Yes, you can, ma'am.
Okay. Can you see the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so look, as most of the audience here are from the computer science background, so I think here we are, I can show you can be very much useful in the research works. So start their project using these subjects. So mostly they are like, let me start the laser. Okay, fine. So in artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, cloud computing, cyber security, and robotics are really have a very tremendous growth in recent years, and hopefully they continue to evolve rapidly. So these are the common areas in computer science and engineering. Look at these subjects here.
Ma'am,
You can easily get into these
ma'am,
subjects.
if you
Yeah.
can slide mode, full slide mode যদি যেতে হয়।
So you cannot see the slide? Oh, okay.
Only we can only see the first slide, sir.
Just a moment. Just a moment. So can you see that right now?
Yes, ma'am. Can you go to the slide mode, ma'am?
Yeah, I
Presentation mode.
have in the slide mode. Yeah, right now. Can you see that?
Oh, okay, ma'am. You continue. I think you can see the slide.
Have you seen this? No. Have you seen?
Ma'am, the window got changed actually. So
This is still the window.
yeah, when you click the presentation mode, the window got changed. So if you can click the share screen again and select the right window, then we can get the whole.
Okay. Just a minute, please. I can. I'm not sure what is creating the problem now. How about now? How about now?
Ma'am, you continue. No problem. We can see the slides.
Can you see those? So when I'm going from the one slide to the another, can you see that? No.
Um, yeah.
So
We
I'm
can see that.
using.
We can see that. Yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
Can you see that? Okay. So, however, so these are the common areas of research. In a bottom line, that these are really great to start from the beginning to the pro level, and especially like the algorithms and data structure, AI, machine learning, and computer architecture organizations, cybersecurity, database, graphics and visualization, human computer interactions, just like this. And also uh, from those broad areas, we can got some of them, those very emerging technologies in computer science, especially in research area. Those are very much booming these days. That those are like quantum computing, edge computing, blockchain technology, or IoT, augmented reality and virtual reality, or natural language processing, cyber physical systems. So basically, we can say that they are shaping the future of computer science. And also these factors, like these challenges and opportunities. So as it has already covered very nicely by Shami Madam, like we will face when we are going to uh, dig into the research, we can face the complexity because the technology becomes more complex, and it will be more complex day by day. So it will be challenging to design and develop and evolve these new systems. And also the security is our main concern to adopt all these technologies. And ethical concepts or concerns is always a issues for us because of the privacy and bias. And always we have the limited resources. So the first thing we need to remember that we from the when we start from a scratch, we always have very limited resources like funding or equipment or expertise. So minding those situations into our uh, like scenario, we want to contribute these three sections. Like we can collaborate from the different disciplines. And the second thing, that we need to innovate something that has a very potential to drive into those innovations and change in many areas. And also computer science and research should have a very significant social impact, providing solutions to real world problems. So now, one of the things that I want to show from the computer science research examples. So I'm stopping this slide currently and going to the other one. So I think that is what is creating the problem. So this is the one of my research paper. Can you see that now? I'm now sharing the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so look at that. So it was basically the main concept is our target was that we want to find the trends and patterns of crime or crime pattern in Bangladesh, and using these very common machine learning models. Okay, so look at this. So that is our main target, and the abstract also summarize all the things that we have already done. It summarizes in the abstract, and keywords are also indicating that which keywords or which wordings, the terms are very much impactful into our research contributions. So these are the main sections as it is. You can see this is the introduction and the literature review, and third section is the methodology. Here, the methodology, as Shami ma'am already said, that how the methodology should structure, you can also check and find the similarities. Look at this. The first thing first, we have described the data set we have got. So in this paper, we have collected our data set from Bangladesh Police website, and we acknowledge that, and it contains actually different sorts of crimes pattern, which have been already occurred between 2002 to 2018. So when we got this different sort of crimes, we started to create our own model. So these are the methodologies we have already shown here. Look at this. So again, now when we want to judge the machine learning parameters, now in section C, we have shown here that look, different metrics are there. So what are the different metrics? These are the different metrics we want to apply here. So these are all elaborately described in the methodology sections, and also the block diagram, which actually summarizes the entire methodologies. Now the fourth section, that is the results and discussions. Here we have only summarized the outputs and what we got from our results or from our data sets. So after pre-processing cleaning, we have got this data from this one. This one is the our real actual results and the predicted results comparisons, and also our model evaluation, like how good it performed. Is it actually matched what the machine predicted and what actually, how many robberies like this, how many robberies actually happened, and what is saying by the machine, how many robberies will happen, is this number the same? So according to this, we can actually compare that how the machine can predict, or how good the machine this model can predict according to our design. So we have shown this, all those things one by one. So we have shown this, like the smuggling or the abductions, or different crimes could be like women or child repressions, like this. So we have every categories, we have compared those 13 categories, and also we have checked each of them and calculate the model evaluation using the model evaluation metrics. So this is the main sections in results and discussion sections. So this I think it should sound very easy, uh, because this result sections is already showing what we actually targeted in our earlier plan. So we targeted that, well, is the machine learning tools say the same to the actual result? So we wanted to show it that how the machine learning tools predict and how good the machine predicted and what actually the machine
Hello, ma'am.
or any of the like informatics, health informatics data set could be could have some sensitive data set as well. So you need to ask the permissions from the authority or main source accordingly. So this is one of papers that has our one of the highest citations we have got, and also it has accepted by the IEEE, archived, it is already there. So this one I wanted to show that how we actually work, and I now I also wanted to show you that how this paper actually have the skeleton, and how we actually made our progress. Okay, so I'm going to the another slide now. So can you see me the next one? Can you see that? What is that? I have got another screen.
Ma'am, it
No.
was the previous paper that you were showing.
That is the
You may
previous
have
one.
to
Have you seen the
share
previous one?
screen again. Yes, ma'am.
Shortly, I think you can delete this. You can stop this screen
Yeah.
and show the new one.
Okay.
But
Right. Just a moment. So just a moment. I'm going to the next slide. So look at this. So one of them, when we started, that what exactly inputs we are going to take. So these are all the checklisted we have done first. So when we start to work from different like areas, or for a beginners, we always give our students these sort of formats to start, because it actually clarifies the ideas, and also it make the work easier, and it actually does all the options chunk by chunk, like byte by byte. You can do all those things, like from the problem definitions, or for the like action parts, or even for the methodology parts, what specific output do you predict. So you can write it down, and then have you got all your data sets, so you can describe your data set. Oh, okay, well, so I am talking from the machine learning perspective. It is also true for any of the areas, as I mentioned before, all those areas. And then what are the most relevant factors for predicting your specific outputs? You can always say that, and you can state your opinion there. And then for the performance measurement, that is the results and discussion sections, also the methodology sections as well. These are the benchmark you need to compare with them, with the other researchers and their works and their measurements and their like their judgments. So you can always compare with this. So once you have filled in the skeletons, so you could do one more thing. It should be algorithm. I have provided all those things. If you need this thing for your work, maybe if you are a beginner, you can always ask me from me. You can email me. I could I could provide you this format. Also, I want to show you the another one. Mm, just a moment. So look at this. These pages, this paper also has this abstract sections, and also the introduction sections, which we have gathered all those sections. We need to as we these sections actually covers all the literature reviews here. And in the methodology sections, so look at this, the previous those point, actually just we have fill in those points, that this is the descriptions, and then again this is the model descriptions, these are the model matrices and their explanations, and the overall a you can say a diagram to cover and to explain how this entire models work in by step way. And when we wanted to show the results and discussion sections, we want to show it using the like this statistical diagram. Also, you can use like this line diagram. You can also use the bar diagram. So the main thing is that if you want to increase the rate of success rate to getting like accepted, you need to clarify each of the sections that has a gap. If the gap remains there, then there is high chances that it will come again to you, and they will ask you that, okay, why did you write it here? Please explain again. Or if there is the many more like big gap, then it will never maybe comes to the line.
Hello.
Hello, I'm not actually hearing anything from Shonali.
Ma'am, are you there? Charlemagne? Internet issue, I guess.
I think it is international. Okay.
Hello.
Okay. I think there is an internet issue from her side.
Uh,
Okay, let me call her.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
ma'am.
okay, she is joining. She's joining again.
And this session that we have done today, this is the first session of our Women in Computing group of IEEE Computer Society Bangladesh chapter. And I want to humbly thank, as a secretary of this chapter, to Dr. Risala Tasin Khan ma'am, our Women in Computing coordinator, to manage this session, and also our honorable speakers, Dr. Mashar Shami ma'am and Shonali Boshat ma'am. And this is the first event from Women in Computing, and we have some time this year, and we will have so many events in the future, inshallah. And I will request our audience to join. And this session will be uploaded in the YouTube, and we'll share it publicly with the registered participants who have missed. And I hope this will help everyone. So thank you. And with your permission, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you so much, ma'am. Can we end this session if you permit us?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Shami ma'am, for your time. It has been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your inviting me and completing this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you.